As we look deeper into who helped lose the election for Pierre Poilievre, one common denominator keeps coming up. Dougie. Let's go. Welcome back to Bakes on Things. It seems we have a puppet master in our midst. Yes, let's talk about what really happened in the 2025 federal election because it's becoming far more clear who really contributed to the one where Pierre Poilievre lost. Yes, not just the loss of the seat, the whole damn thing. And no, it wasn't just the fault of Trump's tariffs or Mark Carney's carefully scripted rhetoric. It wasn't just the fault of the mainstream media or liberal Facebook ad dollars flooding swing ridings throughout Ontario. No, the real culprit might just be silence. However, not just any silence. Douglas Ford's silence. Dougie. You see, when your party is in the fight of its life federally, when the whole country's on edge, when you're watching inflation rage like flames, crime rise, and groceries hit mortgage level pricing, your provincial bench boss doesn't go fishing. Unless, of course, he's already picked a different team. I think we should start with that. Should we start with that? Let's start with that because that seems big to me. Let's start with what nobody in the mainstream seems to be brave enough to say. Doug Ford didn't just withhold an endorsement of Pierre Poilievre. He deliberately and strategically iced him out. Ontario, the very province that could have delivered Poilievre a majority government, watched as its conservative premier played the role of political Switzerland, neutral in public, but deeply strategic in private, it seems. See, Ford didn't campaign. He didn't attend the rallies. He didn't even create rallies. He didn't lift a finger. But he did show up for breakfast. With whom is that? Oh, that's Mark Carney. Interesting. Yes, the Liberal leader running against his federal party's leader. Weird. The two sat down for eggs and strategy while Canadians choked on interest payments and tariff threats. They claimed to be talking about Donald Trump and the trade war and tariffs. However, we both know better, don't we? Because it was right before the election was called. And because that meeting wasn't about trade, it was about territory. And here's the real kicker. At that very moment, Pierre Poilievre's own riding, the same days that the election was being called in Carleton, was being flooded with 91 candidates, 85 of whom were planted by an independent group calling themselves the Longest Ballot Committee, and they're prepared to do it again in Alberta. A clever name for these morons, for a surgical political hit job. Why target that riding? Why not just target Mark Carney's riding? Or anyone else's for that matter? Well, that seems simple, doesn't it? Because you don't need to destroy the party, just its symbol. And how interesting that this happened after this breakfast. And when Ford stayed silent, I should say, and refused to share his voter data when his machine used to back or should have backed up Poilievre's campaign in key ridings, he wasn't just being neutral, he was being tactical. He smiled for the cameras, shook hands with Carney, praised his performance against Trump like a judge handing out gold stars in a kindergarten trade war. And the Conservative Party, fractured and fumbling and trying to get its feet after it lost a big lead that it had late in the previous year, got played by one of its own. One of its own. Ladies and gentlemen, we didn't just lose an election. We got outmaneuvered by an insider. It was an inside job by our own bench. And now for the twist. Ask yourself, why would Doug Ford do this? Why would Doug Ford help the Liberals? Because it wasn't just about this election, it was about positioning himself as the new centrist kingmaker, the one who could one day unite this country by standing above the fray, respected by liberals, handing out $5 beer, buck a beer, whatever it was, remembered by conservatives, and untouched by the blood spilled during this 2025 campaign. Doug Ford didn't lose this election for Poilievre by accident. He kept his powder dry because he may still want the throne. Yes, Doug Ford wants the throne. And in politics, sometimes the best way to win a war is to let someone else lose it for you. We'll catch you next time.